And got it. So, Nohemy said when we first started our apprenticeship back in 2015, it felt like it was really haphazard. I feel like the programs that are starting up now have are acquiring different kind of wisdom over the years. When we started, it was like we had money, like let's put the money to work, let's throw these people into training. We've trained parents before, let's take a group of parents, let's put them in training, let's get to work. And forgetting, for me, I forgot things like, oh, they need laptops, you mean they're doing papers on their cell phones? Oh, they may need transportation to get to classes. Oh, they're Head Start parents, they may need a little bit more case management. And it took us a minute to figure out, like all of us were acting in those roles as managers of this program. And we even had the professors and instructors that were teaching the classes were acting as case managers and helping the students with whatever they needed, because our goal was to get them through and not have it cost them anything, and to feel really good about staying in early childhood. And, I have these big eyes that sometimes want to take in way more than I can chew. And we did initially. And so after the first year, we slowed it down. We hired a workforce director, and her first role was actually creating the success coordinator position. And I give, for those of you who know Dr. Joya Chavarin, full credit for coming up with the title success coordinator, because her whole goal, and every time we talked, it's like, it's all about success. It's no fail options. Nobody can fail this program. If we provide everything they need, there's no reason for anybody to fail this program. And that is the job of the success coordinator. And that's what their job description looked like initially. It's like, whatever you have to do to make it work. And, how do you put that in a job description? It's, it doesn't really fit, but, we managed to do something because we've had amazing people over the years. So we started with one success coordinator who became a manager, and then hired 2 success coordinators, and then hired 3 success coordinators. We brought Nohemy on at that point, and now we're up to 7 success coordinators based on the funding and the amount of students we have taking classes every semester. We've got about 170 people taking classes right now, and about another 105 high school students that are taking classes. Some of whom are going to register, not all of them. We're still working out the logistics of how we're going to do that. And Nohemy and Sandra are curious to know as well. We're still figuring out who's going to be an apprentice from high school and who's just taking classes to get through high school. So anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Nohemy to talk specifically and more about the role of the success coordinator. And I hope you'll ask her lots of questions when she's done sharing, or while she's sharing, if that's okay. And then we'll bring it back for a discussion at the end. So Nohemy, can you share your screen?
I am about to hit share right now. Please let me know if you can see the screen I want you to see, which is the PowerPoint. Yeah? Okay, great. So Pam really introduced, I think, the role pretty well. And the role of the success coordinator was really created in thinking about this program and the population to be served through an equity lens. And it's all about making the program accessible and equitable, right? So like she was saying, there was a lot of needs that showed up through the years that could not have, people, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's like all the things that you couldn't have planned for. And then you start to realize that there is a lot of stress that comes from being a worker and managing school at the same time. And also running and implementing apprenticeship programs require a lot of work. And so part of the secret sauce to success is having program staff dedicated to supporting the implementation and sustainability of these programs. And one of those roles is the success coordinator. And like Pam said, sometimes people call it different things. But that's the title that we use for, the programs of the YMCA and the programs that ECEPTS also sponsors. And let me click on the next one. And I don't have a lot of slides, by the way, so don't worry, we're not going to be sitting here for the remaining 45 minutes or so that we have. And so, like you said, this is a graphic just to show you, right, that the center of everything that everybody in the everyone in the program staff does is around the apprentice. So the apprentice, we're centering the student success, we're centering the apprentice success, and the success coordinator is highlighted in the graph because that's the one that we're addressing today. And the success coordinator is essentially the first point of contact of every apprentice. So they are liaisons with the employers, with RSI providers, meaning community colleges in our case, and they all of the tasks that they do are around those two roles. The first one is, like I said, is being the first point of contact with the apprentice. And typically they will be the ones, supporting the outreach of the outreach and recruitment of apprentices. And they will be the ones that starting to develop relationships with apprenticeships. They'll be the ones doing an initial screening of applications after HR has already approved them, and coordinating the submission of any paperwork that's needed, making sure that we have, health screening forms and etc. on file. So all of that, it's what the success coordinator will support with. And we also, they also support with onboarding, orienting apprentices into the program. So before the classes even start, they will have a day, with apprentices to come together, get to meet each other, because the courses are typically cohorted for at least for the entry-level program. And so they will have the apprentices, meet each other. They will organize those events, or at least support the organization of those events. Because I know that in some programs, there is a success manager, a project director, a project manager that might be essentially responsible for leading the work, and then they are supporting. But in some other cases, it's the success coordinator who is leading the task. So during, these orientation events, the apprentice will get the success coordinator will get the apprentice introduced to the online platform that they're going to be using if the classes are online, or introducing the professor, and making sure that those connections are already established before the classes even begin, or by the first day of classes, because that helps to ease a little bit the fear that comes with, being a college student. Many of the apprentices that we've served in the past are first generation college students and do not have really a support system guiding them through the process. I was talking with a group of apprentices pretty recently, and they were sharing with me that in the past they had tried to enroll in classes and they gave up because the system seemed too complicated. And then when they learned about the program at the YMCA and they had somebody helping them through the process, they felt like this was manageable. They felt like this was something that they really could do. And it took them like 2 semesters to really get the hang of it and learn how to navigate that system by themselves. And they say that having the success coordinator support from day one was really what helped them stay in the program, because they got guidance in terms of like navigating not only the systems, but also coping with the demands of being a worker in a full-time, at least part-time college student. And in some cases, some of them are actually taking 3 or 4 classes, so they're full-time college students as well. So when you think of the success coordinator, there is a little bit of case management that happens. But I think that the success coordinator is really the one providing that holistic human approach to the apprentice, because they are following up not only on an academic and work-related level, but I think that sometimes the success coordinator identifies certain needs that the apprentice are experiencing on a personal level. For instance, we in the past have learned that there have been apprentices living in their cars, or not having childcare, or not having food at home. And so while, it will be great for a program to provide all of those services, at least knowing that there is a need gives us an opportunity to refer the apprentices to resources in the community. And so that's why I said that it's a holistic approach, because we're not only looking at grades, not only making sure that they're, showing up to work or tracking their trainings and etc., but we're also looking at the apprentices as human beings who also have other needs that might come first for them, of course, right? Because if they don't have all of those needs met, then all the learning and all the training will not be maximized. And in terms of the administrative part of being a success coordinator, the success coordinator supports the tracking of grades. And that's not only to ensure that the apprentice is following up on the pathway that was, created for them and making sure that they're progressing, but also if you have a sponsor, the sponsor will also be required to have those grades on record. So in the case of the YMCA, ECEPTS is their program sponsor, and so we have to get that information from them. And we work with the success coordinators to make sure that we have grades, transcripts, etc. from everybody. And in some cases, the success coordinators actually work with the college to get those grade reports created and submitted to us. So as you can see, they're pretty much the through line in the program, and they have communication with everybody in the program. And they also support the development of educational plans, and all the courses that they take are degree applicable. And in California, we also have a permit matrix. So the courses that they're taking, they also align with the permit. And the success coordinator is working with the college, working with a counselor or, with the point of contact at the college, and making sure that all of those courses are intentionally taken so that the apprentices benefited from them. And the success coordinator might also work with an embedded tutor or tutor. In some cases, there is tutors sitting in the classes and supporting the apprentices. In some other cases, the tutoring happens outside of the classroom, and it's typically delivered by contractors. And the success coordinator will be the one checking in with apprentices consistently about every week or so, and making sure that the apprentice is receiving the academic support that they need to be successful in the program. And that might include, again, tutoring. Are there any questions so far? I cannot see like people's hands or the chat, so I don't know if somebody wants to ask a question. No? Okay. Okay, great. So like I was saying, they work with counselors, with embedded tutors to make sure that the apprentices are getting the academic support that they need. And in the employer side, there is placements that happen, and typically there is another person who is leading the work of placements and working with the operations department and the HR department. However, the success coordinator is the liaison, and they are the ones following up with the apprentice and letting them know that there are forms that are missing, or letting them know about, the logistics, and letting them know where their placements, when the placement's going to start, where they're going to be located, addressing any questions that they might have. And also, apprenticeship programs need to be tracking time on the job training hours, so in the form of timesheets. And that's another task that the success coordinator supports with, to making sure that either if you are the sponsor, that you are keeping track of all of these data, and if you have a sponsor, is making sure that your sponsor has the data that they need to be tracking on the job training hours. And they also, in the case of the YMCA, they deliver the soft skills trainings. Apprentices, on top of receiving their academic education, they're also getting training that's related to their work. And in the past, success coordinators have worked with the education department to identify specific trainings that are related to working in the classroom. And pre-apprentices might even start being introduced to the classrooms before they're officially placed in the classroom. So they get an opportunity to go see the site, to understand, what a DRDP tool is, to look around, do observations, just as a way of getting them introduced into the classroom. So success coordinators also support that effort on the employer side. And overall, really, the success coordinator is building relationships with the apprentice. Apprentices have expressed in the past that program staff, being success coordinator being one of the key roles, really motivate them to continue in the program and act as role models and as the cheerleaders, right? So sometimes apprentices want to take a break from the program or drop the program for whatever reason. And the success coordinator looks at finding ways to support the student. And in some cases, we support them by helping them find a solution or understanding that they need a break. So we help them drop from their classes and notify the program staff, but we continue to follow up with the apprentice. And in many cases, they are enrolled again by the next semester. So the success coordinator is really just making sure that the apprentices are not falling through the cracks and that their needs are being addressed and met. Any questions so far? Nope. I only see Pam. Great. Okay.
I do have a question. This is Monique.
Hi, Monique.
When the example that you gave about possibly individual struggling with their course and they start out with a particular cohort, and if, for example, they don't, I know we talked about no fail, but something happens where they aren't successful in a class, and they need to repeat it or whatever, or pick up where they need to, after a break or whatever, do they become a part of another cohort at that point?
It's a really good question. No, go ahead. You can answer it first and then.
Okay. So I think that it depends on what your perspective is of a cohort, because there's a lot of people who have started in a program and then everybody moves at different paces and one goes into the next program and some of them stay. But because the relationship has already been built, they feel like they're still part of the cohort, even though others are at different places. So it's a very gray area where you get the opportunity to be with another group. But if that relationship has already been built, then they just stay with their cohort, and we find alternatives to make sure that they align with the cohort at some point again.
Yeah, and it's very personal too. I mean, it's really all about the relationships, but it's also how far they've gotten in the program. So if it's a third or fourth class, they already have relationships with people. If it's their first or second class, they may not be that bonded with the cohort, and then they would probably join a new cohort. We have cohorts popping up all over the place. Most of them are virtual. We also have, we do 8-week classes, and not everybody can handle the 8-week classes. So we have some people that do full 16-week semester classes, but the majority of our apprentices for the first 4 classes do 2 classes a semester of 8 weeks each. So they only take 1 class at a time. And then by the time they get after the first semester, they're in the classroom. So we're trying to get them working by at least 30 hours a week by the time they have 6 units. So
thank you, Pam, for explaining how that structure looks.
We try and keep them cohorted as much as possible, but it really is all about the relationships that people have developed. And it's very different if you come in at the entry level or if you come in at a higher level. The BA cohort, they are tight because they work together and they take classes together, and almost all their classes are the same at the same time. So there's not, but the second level where they're working on their AA degrees, people are all over the place, taking classes all over the place and doing different things. And some people take 2 classes a semester, some take 3, some take 4. And that's where the cohort doesn't fall apart, but it's not as strong around the classes, but it gets stronger around the other activities that are done. So there's other trainings on weekends. There's weekly meetings of all the cohorts. So every cohort meets with their success coordinator as a group once a week. And that's really when the cohort comes together and talks about the stuff that's going on, not just what's happening in the classroom, but what's happening in their lives. And a lot of them have gotten to be, like during COVID in particular, this was their salvation. We kept hearing that over and over again, how the cohort groups came together and really provided, mental health and childcare, and can we meet at a playground somewhere outside with your kids and my kids and talk, and people really got close, which was really nice. And they maintained those relationships afterwards.
Yeah, and in some cases, I've heard that when the apprentices, for instance, if they were in the AA cohort together, and then some of them move into the BA program because they were taking, more classes than the others, they don't really grow apart. If anything, they grow together stronger, because now the one that joined the BA program is actually becoming informally a mentor to the one in the AA program, and they continue to learn from each other. And if anything, those that have moved into the next level actually pull their friends and motivate them and make sure that they're getting in classes with good professors. Like they let them know, oh, take this one, or don't take that one, or make sure that you give this assignment plenty of time, because it ended up being like really challenging for me to like put it together. So they're really advising not only the apprentice, but actually like the program, because they let us know who, which professor we should try to work with, or what class was more engaging, etc. So yeah, I hope that between Pam and my example that answers your question.
Yeah, it gives me a better picture of how it works with you all, in terms of how that situations that come up and how it impacts the cohort model. Yeah.
This is Brenda in Kentucky, and really have a cohort model. But what we have found is, as apprentices have completed the director apprenticeship, they are now mentored for the educator and child care development specialist apprenticeships. And one of the things that we did when I was at the Governor's Office of Early Childhood, we had monthly office hours. So like the third Thursday of every month from 10 to 12, anyone could sign in to ask a question, whether it was an apprentice, a mentor, or an employer. And then we offered it again later in the month in the afternoon. This was a great opportunity for people from various parts of the program to connect. And I found that it ended up being sort of like a support group for each other. Here's how we did this, and sharing documents like, this is how we're tracking in our own facility, or this is what we're doing to meet with our people. So if you're looking for a model that's slightly different, that may not answer the cohort question, but it addresses the fact that it allows people coming in at different areas, different levels, different programs to really connect. So I hope that offers just a little bit of a different light.
Thank you, Brenda. That's helpful to hear. I'm always intrigued by how other programs and other states are working. So I appreciate your contribution to the conversation. And yeah, sometimes like Pam said, sometimes there's only 3 students in a class because we don't have enough people to fill a class, and they're still looking out and getting support from their peers. So once that relationship is built, that's really what we refer as a cohort. Like once they have established a support system, a peer network, that's essentially our cohort model, because after the first 12 units, it becomes very challenging to keep them in the same class and move at the same pace. So with that being said, I just wanted to share with you some, I guess, considerations, because, you know, this role is very critical and it's very important and very much needed to the program. And these are some key considerations where you're, you know, looking at establishing a success coordinator in your program. You gotta, of course, think about funding. And Pam, please correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the success coordinator for the most part is mostly grant funded. Or have you managed to add it to the
Well,
budget?
I mean, we have a lot of grants, so yeah, but we use federal and state money as well. But it's mostly grant funded based on the cohort that they're assigned to and the college. So we have enough grant funding to be able to do it for a long enough period of time that we don't have to worry about that. But you always have to think about the funding, and because you don't want to hire somebody and then wind up laying them off when the grant money goes away.
Yeah, so that's one of the key considerations. And, you know, thinking about that continuity of care, the apprentices are really impacted by staff leaving the program. And so if you know, you have it in your hands to make sure that they have that they're funded for a few good years, then that's a key consideration while you're establishing this role in your program. And the staff capacity as well, because, you know, you might, like Pam said, you might start with one success coordinator, and a year or so later you have double the people that you started with, because now you're bringing in another cohort. And so you no longer have 20 apprentices or 10 apprentices, you have 20, 40, so you have double the people. And so you have to continue to assess the capacity of the success coordinator, because relationship management takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of time as well. And typically they also, like I said, they also support with administrative work. So we want to make sure that we are being intentionally mindful about their capacity as well. And in some programs, because they don't have that many apprentices, we have seen dual roles happen, where somebody who's maybe under, you know, training or workforce development becomes the success coordinator, and that becomes part of half of what they do or a third of what they do. And that would be another option for you to identify if there is already a position that's established that might give you the opportunity to integrate the success coordinator role into. And the existing frameworks, I think that a lot of, you know, Head Start programs already have some sort of support embedded in their programs. And you also have to like lean on those resources and make sure that you're maximizing them. And lastly, the selection and support for staff. I recently hosted a focus group, and I keep hearing that they really benefited from having a success coordinator or program staff that they could relate to. So looking at your population, looking at the community that you're trying to serve, and looking for individuals that can also relate, looking for program staff that can also relate to the apprentices seems to be very beneficial for them. And support for staff in the same way that we are supporting apprentices. I, you know, advocate for support for success coordinators and program staff. Think about professional development or any kind of supports that the program might be able to provide to also support them, because again, the work that they're doing, it's pretty challenging. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna pass it over to Pam, and I appreciate having had the time to share a little bit about success coordination with you.
Thank you so much, Nohemy.
Of course.
So one of the other things that we're doing is we're sharing success coordination amongst other agencies where they don't have the capacity or they're not big enough, or we're trying to get them onboarded to be able to do their own thing. So we have 2 grants right now. California has what's called the CAI grant, which is California Apprenticeship Initiative Grant. It's funded out of the state chancellor's office to support pre and apprenticeships at community colleges and other educational institutions. We actually have 3 of those grants, but 2 of them what we're doing is we're sharing a success coordinator among several employers. And because we have the internal capacity, so we hire the people and then they go visit or they work with the apprentices that are at another agency. We just met yesterday about one, and we thought they were only going to have one apprentice, and now it turns out they're going to have 3 apprentices at their various sites. And so it's kind of exciting. It'll help them build capacity sooner by having more people out there. We also have a mentor coordinator, and the mentor coordinator will meet with their education team or their head teachers and talk to them about what's required on the part of a mentor. A registered apprenticeship doesn't require very much, but we do. We require the mentor teacher to assess the competencies of the mentee. So that's something that we've created a tool for them to use like that. In some places, the success coordinator may be doing that role, but for us, it's the teacher that's in the classroom working with the apprentice. So we've got 15 minutes left. I would love to know how other people are doing this role and what you're thinking about it. I can put Detroit on the spot because you got so many
Hey,
of you.
Pam, this is Brenda. I'm just gonna, of course, I'm gonna interject here.
Sure.
One of the things that we found, and Nohemy, you mentioned this, that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And that's one of the things we discovered in Kentucky when we first started the program. We realized, yes, we've got all these people that are going to be mentors. None of them have any idea what they're supposed to do. So we sat down and designed a mentor guidance module system. So there were 5 modules, and we had a mentor summit where all the mentors came to Frankfurt. They had a day and a half of training on active listening, trust building, good best practices, basically, for a good mentor. And then the 5th module was specific to the work process plan of the apprentices that they had. But we did not know this when the idea was starting. As Pam said, you get the money, you're like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do this. And you're trying to operate like a program as you're building the program. And that's one of the things that we learned, that really building in that mentor piece, because I think it's something like 91% of apprentices that complete their apprenticeship say that mentor-mentee relationship was a key factor. So really pumping up and standing up that intentionality behind the mentor piece is really crucial. And I love the idea of the success coordinator, because they're kind of a little bit over that, looking at all the factors of success, but really taking time to think about, what do you want your mentors to have, and how can you systemize that or standardize that approach? So it's not really a question, Pam, but I do think it's something that addresses any mentor or success lead on maybe what they need to think about in terms of their own individual programs.
Oh yeah, I mean, people have to be trained. That's pretty clear. So yeah. Anybody else?
So this is all helpful because everyone knows that we're not a registered apprenticeship program, and every time we're together and I'm getting more information as I'm trying to move us towards that, it's like, oh, well, we do it this way, and it's kind of good to know that there's a little bit of chaos in the midst of that, because right now, the way that we have it structured is everyone is going through all of their college courses together, and it's a fast pace at that. And when I say fast pace, they're taking 8-week classes for 2 classes, 2 8-week classes, and then 2 more 8-week classes within that typical college semester. So of early childhood courses. And so the current cohort that we have, they're in the middle of they completed 6 credits, and now they're working on the next 6 credits. So December, they're going to have 12 early childhood credits.
Are they working at the same time?
No, they're not working.
Okay. So
Right.
we started out that way, doing 12 units 2 8-week classes, but they were also working, and they were crazy. They were standing in hallways crying during exam time.
Yeah, so you know, the next semester, you know, in order to get the short-term certificate that the college offers, they'll have another 3-credit class plus, well, 2 more 3-credit classes. One is instructional and the other is like the practicum. And that's where they will be placed at a site to get their hours that's required for the CDA. So they aren't employees at any point during this whole process of being in the program, but we give them stipends monthly, and cover the cost of the tuition, and books and all the additional supports that we provide, like financial coaching, employment readiness, digital literacy. And so I'm just trying to take it all in, because I know each program looks different. And so, you know, we're in cohort 8 now, and you know, always something new comes up, you know, that, you know, we need to look at, adjust, or how do we handle an instructor that is not a good fit, you know, for the students, as an example. Or if someone is struggling with their coursework, and if they don't pass it, you know, as we're preparing them to apply for employment, after they're done, possibly they get employed before they're finishing their 480 hours. So then we kind of lose connection with them, because now they're a Wayne Metro employee, or they may get employed at another partner site. So it becomes a challenge for to track success. We know that we want to help them to get their CDA, because that's the purpose of them coming initially into the program, because that's like the entry level. But then we have people that go on to get their associate's degree, because we've kind of laid the foundation with these 20 credits that they receive in our program, and going for a bachelor's degree. So I'm just trying to kind of digest, like, how this would look because of the numbers. You know, right now the numbers, you know, we can be somewhat flexible based on private funding to you know, have the people in the cohort. But when we talk about a registered apprenticeship and coming in at a certain pay in the beginning and then moving them, so there are a lot of things that we will have to tweak in the process of getting all the other working parts together here in Detroit, you know, because there's a lot of apprenticeship things that are happening, that may not, you know, they're not necessarily early childhood. And
Right, it's
so,
worth registering because there's money that you can get access to as part of the registration process, either
yeah,
through the Department of Labor or other grants that you might be eligible for at the state level. There's workforce money. It just makes it easier if you're registered in some ways. It's a pain in the butt, and there's more paperwork you have to do and more tracking you have to do. But I think ultimately it's probably worth it.
yeah,
And the consistency around it is helpful. And that way, if somebody else wants to steal what you're doing, it can be replicated easier.
yeah. Yeah, we have that going on also, I think, in Michigan, that there are some, you know, we didn't even know that there were some early childhood registered apprenticeships when this program, the inception of it, you know, and at that time it was just myself doing all these moving parts. And I'm so thankful to have Erica, and she attended the conference last year, or the beginning of this year, or May, or this year is almost over, but anyway. And so having other people to hear and think, and then my supervisor, she was here, she hopped off, and then, you know, we have under our agency umbrella of workforce development and on-the-job training, which is Latoya's here. So I'm just like, you know, I think we'll continue to have conversations. I just want to invite them to hear so that we can think a little more on one accord.
I think that's like really important. And you can't do this kind of program without support from internally in your agencies. You're placing people in classrooms, you're having them work with more experienced teachers. I mean, y'all have to be on the same page for doing this, and it's a lot of work. Delberta,
Hi,
what
so I
can you
guess
enlighten us with on this?
I have a question, not necessarily how we're doing it. So we've had the CDA program for several years. This is the first year that we've had the registered apprenticeship program. So have you had a lot of success in moving, those students from being in the CDA program into like the AA and the BA apprenticeship programs? And kind of how does that look?
I mean, for us, we don't do CDA because we're in California and we have like associate teacher permits, but going from tier 1 to tier 2, a lot of people, I would say 70, 80% move to the next level. But do they stay at that level? Not all of them. And I think what happens is, well, first of all, during COVID, it sort of screwed everything up for a lot of people and it slowed a lot of people down. If people don't get a job that pays them enough money during that transition period, they're out of there and they're going for the highest bidder. And so some have left early childhood, some have stayed and gotten jobs with other agencies. We just had a huge salary increase this year. And I would say, I'm curious to look at our numbers this year because we're so much more competitive with the agencies around us that people are staying and they're wanting to get their degrees. And we just started partnering with a new agency for the BA degree, and people are loving it because it's all contextualized coursework in early childhood. So people are taking 4 classes and they're making it work. They're feeling that it's like the best professional development they've had. But you have to get through the AA stuff in order to get to that BA point. So that's what we're looking at this year. We're doing a deep dive into our AA model and what's taking it so long and how to make it better, and look and see if we can get some courses contextualized, particularly the English and math, which are so hard for people to take. And the general ed at community colleges, they're not friendly to us. The early childhood people are so easy to work with, but the general ed people are, they do things their own way and they don't really want to change it that much. Even if they're losing students, they don't really care. Megan, you're nodding, and your program is your program a BA program?
Our programs and states are AA and BA, and with Teach, if you've got Teach in your state, not all Teach states have all of the scholarships and or apprenticeship, but with our traditional Teach scholarships, there's tremendous that move from the CDA into an AA into a BA, where that's all offered for the scholarship programs. And the retention is very high. I mean, nationally, I'd have to look at our report, but it's well over 90% that stay, earn those, and keep moving forward. And with the apprenticeship programs, they're so new in most of the states, but that's, if you're in a state that has a Teach scholarship program, I would look to that and look to that retention, not that data. They all have annual reports, and I'm happy to send those to you if you need it. But that counseling role provides a lot of the same supports the success coordinators do. And the states that are doing Teach scholarships and apprenticeship, we have 7 states that are doing this now, really pair those 2 pieces together to move them from one to the other. So I would connect with your program if you've got one and see if they're doing that. And if not, how could your apprenticeship even partner with the Teach scholarship program? Because that adds a lot of the layers of support there already that you may not have the capacity to do quite yet, or you're just not ready yet, or whatever it may be, but they do almost all of those pieces that Pam outlined. So that may be a really natural resource if you've got that in your state.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks to all of you. That was great advice.
Nohemy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, work very closely with the college to make sure that they already have an educational plan before they start taking classes. It's going to make your life hopefully a little bit easier, because you're going to know every semester what courses you need to request, and whenever possible, even cohort them, because you will know how many students need this specific class. And make sure that they stay in the pathway as well, because there's other courses that might give you certificates but that are not necessarily required for the degree. So you know, and this was my like personal opinion, but I was like, okay, those additional certificates are great, but if your goal is your degree, let's prioritize those degree applicable courses. So just be very intentional about the courses that they're taking. And if there is a summer when they want to take a fun class or, you know, something specific outside of the degree pathway, then that's the time to do it. But that will be just my general advice, to build strong relationships with the college, because it takes a lot of coordinating once they enter that phase of the program.
And it's 9:30. Thank you all for being here. I know it's 12:30 for some of you. Or in the middle, in case of the middle of the country. It's like we're all over here today. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Detroit, welcome. Thank you all for being here. It was lovely meeting you all and the new people that are here. And we will see you next month. We'll just have a regular meeting in December and then maybe skip January. Or
No,
skip
let me level
December.
set a little bit. So next month in December, NHSA is having our family and parent engagement conference in New Orleans.
Ooh.
That is the first week of December, so it will conflict with our normal meeting time. So we'll take a break in December. What I am going to send out is a survey link. NHSA would just like to get a sense of where everybody's at on their apprenticeship journey. That's really good data for us to know, so that we can say, you know, sort of measure the impact of what this group is doing for you. So it'll be very quick. I'll send the link a few times over the course of the next month to remind you and encourage you to do that. But we really appreciate everyone being here, sharing their expertise, and those of you who are here to learn, that's what this is for. So we're glad you're here, and we just want to know what's helpful and what else you might like to see, so that we can plan accordingly going forward. So our next meeting is scheduled for January. Right now, that's just a discussion group to sort of, if there were more questions about success coordination or anything else that we've talked about thus far, that one's kind of open. And then we were going to schedule a presentation for February. So we'll leave it that way for now and see what kind of feedback we get in our survey, and then move forward from there.
All right, everybody. Have great holidays.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.